Stugatz here. Whether you're into podcasts about ghastly crimes or hip-hop rhymes, there's always something new to discover on Spotify. With a mix of originals and many of the world's most popular shows, listening to podcasts on Spotify is easy. Just open the app, tap Browse, and dive into their growing library. Subscribe to your favorites, including our entire archive, so you'll never miss a show. You can also download podcasts for those moments when you're up in the air or going underground. Podcasts on Spotify are streaming right now. Go check them out today.
With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of discovering the last donut.
Ooh.
And it has your name on it, literally, in chocolate sprinkly things.
No way.
Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
Joining us right now, NFL Nation Skins reporter John Keim, who is at FedEx Field for Skins Giants tonight. John, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Clinton. How are you?
You know, I'm okay. I got two things I want to ask you about. The first one has nothing to do with football. The first is about this decision to open up the parking lots at noon, 8 hours before a game. I need to know right now what it's looking like because I've got the over-under on turkey fryers exploding at about 3. It's a push now, though. I need some insider information to tell me what I should be betting on that line, John.
Oh, I would go under, man, because I don't. First of all, I'm not getting there until 5 o'clock. So,
okay.
You know, I don't know. And after, I think, after that game a couple of days ago, it's kind of sucked the life out of the fan base. So I don't know how many people are going to rush over there to tailgate for a game between a 4-6 and 2-8 team and spend Thanksgiving over there. I don't know. But that's just me. But, God bless them if they do, man.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of last week, that game in which I believe the win, whatever the win probability share with 5 minutes and 15 seconds to go in that game was something like 99.7. They were up a couple scores, managed to get it to overtime, the Saints managed to get it to overtime, and they lost that game. John, I can't think of a game that was that disappointing on an all-around level in a really, really long time. I know you probably know and can educate me more, but what was the general vibe of the team after that game, knowing they had a short week coming up?
I would say crushed. It would be the best word because, and you can just see it on the faces of the players or the head coach Jay Gruden, guys in the locker room after the game, the way they kind of how quiet it was, and seeing some guys who just you felt like had a harder time dealing with the nature of that loss. And so, this week it was hard to get a good read on it because they didn't practice this week. So our open locker room sessions with them were different. Very few guys were in there because the timing of it was different, so they didn't have to be in there. So it's hard to get a great vibe from them. I think they kind of realize where they're at right now with 6 games left and a long shot now to make the playoffs. So I think they know that, they know what they lost. But I think the other thing that's as debilitating to them more than the loss are the constant stream of injuries to key people.
Yeah. We're talking with John Keim, ESPN NFL Nation Skins reporter right here on the Dan Batard Show with Stugatz on ESPN Radio. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a holiday. Let's talk to that, though. They were having trouble even having a correctly filled out active roster. For those who don't understand what they're going to be looking at tonight with the Skins, please explain to me and break down what's going on as far as their injury report is concerned.
Okay, well, let's see. How much time do we have here? But let's start with the offensive line. And they're going to be starting a center, Tony Bergstrom, who is an NFL veteran, but he was signed on October 25th as a backup guard/tackle. Now he'll be starting at center, where he has started 3 times in his NFL career, and that was, I think it was 3 in 2015 with the Raiders. Mm-hmm. So not a lot of experience there, and he had to work this week just in walkthrough. So that's how he's setting up for it. Then you have a left guard in Ari Kwanjo, who they cut this summer, but they re-signed him 3 days after they signed Bergstrom because they needed guys. And Kwanjo actually went in there and did all right. But he'll likely start at left guard unless Trent Williams can play at left tackle, which I don't know that he will because coming off a short week, dealing with multiple knee issues and having to sit out games because of it to play in a short week is asking a lot. But if Williams plays, then Tyan Secchi, who is a tackle, would shift down to guard. So that's just the offensive line. Then you have the running back situation where Samaje Perine, who has made 2 NFL starts, he's a rookie, is their most experienced running back. Tight end Jordan Reed will not play for a 4th straight game because of a hamstring injury. So, again, that's just on offense. Then you look on defense, and they have multiple they've lost Jonathan Allen, the D-line. They've lost Terrell McClain won't play today along the D-line. So they're having to bring in guys off the street and get them ready to play a game. In fact, Jay Gruden told me yesterday that when guys are more prepared going into game 1 of the preseason than they are for this sort of a game because they're bringing guys off the street and having to get them ready. I think it's like 9 guys that they've signed since October 25th who will be a part of today's game.
Wow. That was a lot.
That was a lot. I could keep going, too, because there's a lot of guys that, inside linebacker. I think there's some issues there because they've lost Mason Foster, Will Compton, 2 guys who are really, really good at diagnosing offenses, et cetera. Safety, Monte Nicholson, an impressive rookie, he's going to be out, too. So it's on down the line, man.
That is a lot. So, John, I watched the press conference with Gruden Monday, and he had a look. Look, Gruden is not exactly the most charismatic dude, Jay Gruden, that is, and he's also not exactly the guy who's typically very down in the dumps about a lot of things. Right. But his body language was awful. He was touching his face a lot. He just looked like a guy who was physically uncomfortable to the point where I'm beginning to wonder whether or not you've got to start considering if he is in a coaching for his job situation. Whether or not I think that's fair is a separate discussion. But from your vantage point, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that would be hard, Clinton, to say that he is at this point because, first of all, they just signed him to the 2-year extension in the offseason, so he has 3 more years after this. So from a financial standpoint, I think they'd be reluctant to have to pay off 3 years, not just for him, so it'll be $5 million a year. So not just for him, but also, and certainly there'd be offsets. So if Jay Gruden gets another job, then he could, there'd be some offsets, I'm sure. But I know that for positive. But so start with $15 million that you'd have to pay off most likely. Then you have assistant coaches you'd have to pay off because you're going to get rid of a lot of them too. So you're talking a bill more than $20 million possibly. So if that were the case, I think it'd be unfair to. Whether people think he can take them to a certain place or not, that's not the discussion right now. But to do something after a year like this, when part of the reason I think they're in these games is because of what they've been able to do offensively, which is what his baby is. So I don't see it like that. I always thought it'd have to take a complete collapse. I don't know that they're in a position to accurately gauge whether or not that's going to take place given their health status. Now, I will say, the schedule eases up over the next 6 games, so there are winnable games. And if you don't win some of these winnable games against teams like the Giants who are banged up as well, then I think then you have to say, well, boy, where is this headed? But at this point, I don't think that's the case. Again, I said, given what they've been through, I think it's somewhat, I don't know about impressive, remarkable, or whatever, but I think when at 4-6, given what they've been through, I don't think anybody can say that they've underachieved by any means.
Best 4-6 team in the league. For those who don't know,
and you know this, Clinton. There are games where you say they should have won that game. The other day against the Saints, despite all this, they should have won that game. And you can look at all factors why. And if you want to look at the coaches, the players, whatever. But I think overall, when you look at it and take everything into account, I would say he shouldn't be coaching for his job.
Schedule coming up: Giants tonight. At Dallas, at the Chargers, home against the Cards, home against the Broncos, end the season at the Giants. I would agree with you. Probably 3 or 4 of those games are winnable, which means they probably are going to win 2. Anyway, last thing I'll ask you, John. Cranberry sauce, homemade or canned? 1-word answer.
I'm going to say homemade's always better.
Oh, first of all, you broke the 1-word answer rule, and it was the wrong answer. I'm just messing with you, John. Thank you very much. He's John Keim, ESPN NFL Nation Skins reporter. Have a happy Thanksgiving, man.
Thanks, Clinton. You too.
No problem. Coming up, you know what? Y'all want to talk about LaVar Ball so bad again? We'll talk about LaVar Ball a little bit more. I can break y'all fools off in front of your friends and family like I tried to tell you I would do. Call me up. 1-888-ESPN. 1-888-729-3776. I'm Clinton Yates. This is the Dan LaBatard Show with Stugotz on ESPN Radio, and it's Thanksgiving.
Hi, everyone. Stugotz here. Support for the Dan LaBatard Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz, STUGOTZ, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Give me a phone call, 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Or if you want to hit me up on the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed, you can do that too, at ESPN Radio or at Clinton Yates. Let me read some of these bananas tweets. At Clinton Yates, I think LaVar actually helped Lonzo's draft status go from top 5 to possible number 1 after seeing these rookies ball out. He brought him focused attention and hype. You're jumping way beyond what I'm even talking about. With LaVar Ball, I'm talking about coaching them throughout their lives. Specifically what he chose to do to make them better players. For those of you who don't know, LaVar Ball is a personal trainer. That's what he does. He trains people to be good athletically and mentally at their things. Beyond just his kids. That's like what his job is. That's why he's got a house in Chino Hills, and that's how he made a living. He happened to want to teach his kids, who he doesn't even like basketball, but he saw they took a liking to it. So what he did was what a lot of parents do, but the other way around. He forced them to play up. A lot of kids now hold their kids back, so they're better than the rest of their grades. He forced them to play up. And he forced them to play up and play fast so that they could get better and they could learn how to play against kids that were older than they were. That's what he did. That was his strategy. Never mind the physical training he put into it for not just his children, but also pretty much every kid in Chino Hills as far as their neighborhood is concerned. In case you don't know that, the Ball household, sort of a community hub in their neighborhood. Just so you're aware of what's going on there. 888-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I was discussing earlier Bill Plaschke, my colleague on Around the Horns column in the LA Times, talking about how LaVar Ball is leeching off his kids, for lack of a better term, which I think is patently unfair, A, and B, incorrect. So let's take some phone calls. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Brooks in Guilford, Indiana. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I'm on the road all by myself on Thanksgiving. I'm going down the road. I turn on the radio. I want to hear about some sports, and what do I hear? Racism and Trump. All I get these days, racism and Trump. It gets really old.
I was thinking the same thing. Thanks for the phone call. Alas, That's how elections work. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. James in Los Angeles, how you doing?
Good. How are you today? Happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
What I was wanting to chime on was the fact that, people, like they was talking about in the segment earlier, how, fathers of the minority communities aren't fit to be fathers. And then they was also saying how, whenever you build an empire, it's like a double standard.
Yeah.
Well, I could have swore like the Balls, they messed around and already talked about that. They messed around, and I remember, I think it was either pre-draft or just post-draft whenever Alonzo was like, well, shoot, in my household, we don't call the police, so you know how it gets down. Now, with the whole thing about the middle son messing up, and they was talking about in another segment how it ain't even, a big deal in China, I'm pretty sure D'Angelo messed around and got punished by his dad. He don't sound like a dude that messed around and just is just letting it just ride. Even though he's in the public eye, like he stated on the whole thing, you ain't talking about the other two boys, you talk about the Ball boy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, how could you mess around and make that double standard on him actually being a father and possibly, we don't know, maybe he beat the crap out of Angelo, you know what I mean?
All right, thanks for the phone call. Thanks for the phone call. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. I'm not advocating for anybody to beat the crap out of anybody, period. That's not what we're here for. I understand your point, and I appreciate it. And I'm not necessarily even here for directing how LaVar chooses to be a dad. What I'm saying is it's really, really hard to imply that he is leeching off of his kids when the reason his kids are in the position they're in is literally because that was his plan to build from the beginning. 888-729-3776. Anthony in Columbus, Ohio. How are you?
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm well.
I just wanted to say, you sit back, you watch and listen, and I really don't have a problem with what LaVar Ball does. Now, there's some things that he could probably tone down, but as a father, I mean, look what the Jacksons' father did for them, iconic family. So sometimes you have to step in and show people that you're not going to push my child around, you're not going to do this, do that. So I have no issues with what he does.
Thanks for the phone call. Other people who come to mind in that situation who I am not putting on the same level as Joe Jackson, who is an abuser, let's be clear on that, though, separately, however, are Richard Williams and Earl Woods. People thought that those dudes were crazy when they were talking about their kids and their abilities. But you know what? They were there. They were present. They were providing. They were teaching. And it worked. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Alex in Indiana, what's up?
What's going on? Now, you started your segment with national anthem playing, and you said at the very end, I bet nobody actually stood up for it. Well,
you're a good listener, correct.
Yeah, considering, okay, I'm not going to bash on it, or so what I am. 90% of the listeners that you have today, especially, are listening in their cars. So, technically... That's
the joke, Alex. Thanks for playing. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Steven in Virginia, what's up? Steven, are you there? Think we lost Steven. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Randy, how are you today?
Hey, doing great. How about you guys?
I think we're good. On a holiday, getting through it. Let's talk about it.
Hey, listen, you can have all the money in the world, do whatever else, but his body language, that kid just doesn't seem happy. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know if it's the pressure, the what, but the kid just doesn't seem happy playing for the Lakers.
Thanks for the phone call. That's a reasonable point. But then again, think about how young that kid is. I don't know how happy I was at that age about anything. Because I don't know that you are supposed to know what you're happy about when you're that age. He's a young man trying to figure out what's going on. That said, he had a pretty good game last night. If you haven't seen that dunk he had, it was dope. Long story short, LaVar Ball's got a problem with how he deals with women. LaVar Ball does not have a problem when it comes to how he raises his sons. His kid made a mistake. His kid said he was sorry. The kid thanked the president for it. LaVar said, we'll see how much that guy actually did. It's all fair. Seems to be just grown folks talking to each other. Coming up, Stefano Fusaro is going to talk Cowboys Chargers with us next. My name is Clinton Yates. This is the Dan Batard Show. It's Dugats on ESPN Radio.
You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Tailgate Terry. Without Tailgate Terry, you wouldn't have cold Bud Lights and 7-layer dip at every pregame. That's 56 layers per season. Just the right amount if you ask Terry. Tailgate Terry is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, 80 St. Louis, Missouri.
Joining us right now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, Stefano Fusaro, ESPN Dallas reporter, talking about what I like to call the nap game, which is the 4:30 game on the Thanksgiving Day slate. How are you today?
Doing well. It definitely is a nap game. Everyone's already full of turkey and all kinds of food at that point. So everybody, you always have a little bit of a sleep coma at that time, right?
Absolutely. So, look, I mean, we can get to what's happening on the field, obviously, in a little bit, but what is the vibe like around this franchise right now? The Zeke situation is a mess. The Jerry Jones situation is obviously ever-changing. What is the vibe like just going on in Dallas regarding the Cowboys?
I mean, there definitely is. There's never a dull moment with the Cowboys, and I think fans are kind of used to that by now. They're always in the news. whether positive or negative. And obviously this has been a whirlwind season for the Cowboys from the very beginning, dealing with Zeke and that entire situation. Look, on the surface, and the players and everybody in the franchise is going to tell you and have been telling us that everything's fine, that they're controlling what they can control, and that's kind of been the tagline for everybody inside that building, and starting with head coach Jason Garrett. But I can tell you that the fans are worried. Yeah, fans aren't happy with the direction of where this team has been going. They feel like kind of they have a hex on them, not just due to the suspension, but obviously the situation going on with Jerry Jones and that whole battle with the NFL. And then, of course, the injuries. The injuries really have played a huge part in this game. When you combine missing Zeke on that offense and missing their left tackle, Tyron Smith, we've really seen just how valuable he is because he's been missing the past 2 weeks, and they've given up a total of 12 sacks, 9 of them from the left side of the line. They do kind of feel like, hey, there's a hex on this franchise this year. Sitting at 5-5, it can, spiral out of control, or they can start winning some games and try to kind of get close. But it is a tough NFC, so fans aren't very happy, as far as what's going on with this team. But inside the building, they're going to tell you that they're happy with where they are and they control what they can control. That's kind of been that line that they've been saying for the past few weeks.
Let me ask you this, because, the Cowboys are another one of those teams where, although they've got a big national following, obviously, Thanksgiving, just like the Lions, is one of those days where people around America are forced to look at them in sort of a different way. My question goes as follows. What is sort of the brand loyalty in Dallas at this moment to what Jerry Jones is providing? Because while I understand that people are Cowboys fans, he's obviously been there for long enough. His success is there. But for those who root for the team for more reasons than liking the owner, at what point does that sort of run thin? Like, I'm wondering if there's any feeling of, man, this guy is really doing probably a little too much at this point. Or are people just saying, hey, that's Jerry, we're fine with how he operates as long as the team wins?
I'm pretty sure that diehard fans here in Dallas are always going to have Jerry Jones back, and you kind of see that and hear that when they do speak, and when you hear guys calling into radio shows and backing up Jerry Jones, backing up this team. I think they do have trust in him. I'm sure that there is a faction of fans that just are kind of tired of everything he's kind of putting out there, especially this entire argument and fight and the civil war, if you will, with the NFL. I'm sure there are definitely some fans that are tired of hearing about it. They just want the team to kind of have more success on the field and aren't really worried about what's going on off of the field. But I guarantee you, and just by speaking to some fans and everybody around here in this city, they are definitely backing and will always support Jerry Jones. He's done too much for them and for this franchise over the years, and I believe that they just they kind of have the blinders on when it comes to Jerry Jones is our guy, and we're going to back him up as much as possible.
Stefano Fusaro, ESPN Dallas reporter, joins us here on the Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gatz. We're brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Thanksgiving Thursday, the third Thursday of November. So, Cowboys got banged out last week. Like, non-game, very ugly, very embarrassing. What are we expecting to see from them today as far as adjustments to try to get back into this season against the Chargers?
Well, I think on the offensive end, the biggest deal, what we just spoke about a few seconds ago, Tyron Smith. He is back. He will be playing today. He's taking the first team reps. He is an all-pro left tackle, and next to Zeke, like I said, we've really seen just how valuable Smith is to this offensive line. The Cowboys' offensive line has been hailed as one of the best in football for years. To be frank, this year they have not been good. But when he's on the field, it makes a huge difference. And like we said, 12 sacks in the last 2 weeks. He will be on the field today and kind of trying to replace Byron Bell and Chaz Green, which what they've done the last 2 weeks has just simply not been good enough. Haven't protected Dak Prescott nearly enough. He obviously needs that going into this game, facing off against Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, so he needs that protection. So on the offensive end, they really need to get something going because Phillip Rivers and that offense, they're going to put up points against the Cowboys. I mean, it's just no way about it. They put up points. Sean Lee, the linebacker, is not available for this game, so the offense is going to have to produce. And having Tyron Smith in there gives Dak Prescott a lot better chance to really kind of get this team out of that offensive funk that they've been in. It's just one touchdown in the last 2 games for the Cowboys offense. So they definitely need a Tyron Smith back in there. to protect Dak and kind of go that moving forward.
Does Dak just get a pass on this season as a result of what's happened with the shaky offensive line, or are you concerned that within himself maybe the development hasn't been there the way people had wanted?
I don't know if he gets a full pass on this. He has not been as good as last year, and obviously his first season, which was an epic first season for a rookie quarterback in this league. I don't know if he gets an entire pass, but yeah, fans here specifically, they're not really blaming Dak about anything that has happened. They're not really blaming Prescott for anything he's done. But we did ask Prescott earlier in the week in the locker room what the team needs to do to get out of this offensive funk that they've been in. And he did blame himself. He kind of put a lot of the onus on himself, saying, I need to really measure risk versus reward when it comes to dropping back to pass, understanding that some of the intermediate routes are going to produce the same amount of yards as some of the longer routes or longer plays that they've tried to kind of force over the last couple weeks. He doesn't get a pass, but he has not been as good as he is, and he's aware of that as well.
What do you think the Cowboys are most afraid of on the other side of the ball coming from the Chargers offensively or even, I guess, defensively?
Look, their linebackers have been their biggest problem this season. Sean Lee, all-pro in this league, we know what he can do, but he hasn't been on the field. This is going to be his fourth game that he's going to miss this season. He's probably not going to be back next week either. He is the heart and soul of that defense, and him not being on the field puts a lot of pressure on the rookie Jalen Smith. Remember, he was drafted last year, did not play. Jalen Smith has not been good against the run in the past few weeks, and not having Sean Lee there has definitely affected this team. And when you have that attack of Phillip Rivers and all the weapons that he has, yeah, they haven't had a lot of success when it comes to their record overall, but that offense can put up points, as we saw last week, 50-plus against the Buffalo Bills. The Cowboys are definitely going to have to do something about that defense. Anthony Hitchens was questionable, another linebacker. So their linebacking core is having some problems, not only with injuries, but also with performance, and that's going to be their biggest challenge here today.
Last thing I'll ask you, Stefano. One-word answer. This is how we play this game, and I mean it. One-word answer. When it comes to cranberry sauce, homemade or canned?
Homemade.
He's Stefano Fusaro. He's ESPN Dallas reporter. That was unfortunately the wrong answer, but thanks for joining us, man.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Y'all homemade cranberry eating Bamas. It's a resource management thing. Ain't nobody got that kind of time to be making homemade cranberry sauce. That's not true. Friends of mine have time. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more football. I'm Clinton Yates on the Dan Batard Show on ESPN Radio. If you want to hit me up, you got two options, kiddos. 1-888-SAY-ESPN. That's 1-888-729-3776. Or get at me on Twitter, at ESPN Radio, at Clinton Yates. I've been asking everybody the question of the day, one of the questions on the poll. If you want to go check out our poll questions, by the way, go to at ESPN Radio. Everybody who I've asked live has said they prefer homemade cranberry sauce. Just saying. Those people are not me. But I talked last hour during this segment about the walking around ham. For those of you who are not familiar with a walking around ham is a ham you have for people to eat while they're walking around at your house, waiting for the rest of the food. Critical to the Thanksgiving Day experience. So let's put it on the poll at ESPN Radio. Does your family have a walking around ham? And if you don't know what a walking around ham is, well, now you know. And if you don't employ a walking around ham, get on it. It's key. Anyway, we're talking about the NFL last segment. We're going to stick with that because there's a couple stories around the league right now that are very interesting to me, both relating to quarterbacks, both of which happen to be brothers. Race talk, party time, excellent. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do all that yet. For those of you who are old school listeners and me filling in, you know what that is. But one story that intrigued me a lot is about Cam Newton. It's been a very interesting season for Cam Newton. He had that row, if you will, with the reporter in which he said something that was wildly misogynistic, if you ask me. Like beyond the sort of basic level of disrespect he was showing, where it was rooted was not good. It's also been kind of a weird year for him. They didn't play so well the whole season. They haven't always been great on this. But he posted a picture of him with his mugshot from when he was at Florida. People forget about that. Before he went to Auburn, he was at Florida. When he got caught stealing a laptop. And he had some very introspective things to say, if you can ever read this, in his bizarro font he chooses to use. Where he talked about it being the lowest point of his life and how he decided from there and then he was never going to have a problem like that. And that changed things. I had sort of forgotten that you can actually see his jumpsuit in this photograph, which he reminds you of. But anyway, I just wanted to say, I've said this before, I think Cam Newton is an emotional guy, which is fine. That is not a knock. I think that he is a dude that as his emotions go, so go the Panthers, which again is not a knock. But it is interesting to see just as a human on earth what his development has been as a human in terms of how he interacts with the general public. Cam Newton is not one of those guys that just happens to be a football player. Cam Newton is a large, actual person with a great personality who has probably been popular his whole life. So how he grows as a human being is interesting to me to see. And I actually thought this was a very, very thoughtful sort of Thanksgiving holiday post, if you will, in terms of where he's at in his life overall. Close the book on that. To something a little less positive. The Buffalo Bills. Now, you might recall that the Buffalo Bills, who were formerly of playoff contention in their division, decided just out of the blue they were gonna bench Tyrod Taylor. Why? Your guess is as good as mine. Why not put in a rookie who went to Pittsburgh who nobody's ever heard of? Why not sit down the one guy who's out there trying to make your franchise relevant? Y'all remember the last time the Bills were in the playoffs? Let's just say it was the non-HD era. That is all you need to know. I'm fairly certain the last playoff game they were in was the Music City Miracle, and they lost that game. Fairly certain. So for them to be goofing around under center when you actually have a chance to get back for the first time in what is effectively a generation, that means you got some internal problems, folks. That means y'all don't know what you're doing. Plain and simple. Speaking of people who don't know what they're doing, let's hear what Sean McDermott, the Bills head coach, had to say about his decision-making process.
There will be people that say you wavered on this. Do you think this shows that you didn't make it about yourself and your own ego?
It's always about the team. It's always about the team, and it will always be about the team with me.
Oh, really? Really? Well, that's interesting. That is very interesting. So you're going back to Tyrod Taylor after your man's threw 5 picks and a half? Quite literally a handful? And it's about the team? Did you poll the team before you asked them if you should bench Tyrod? I'm guessing no. And the reason why I'm guessing no is probably because you're lying. Because it's not about the team. Speaking of people on the team, let's hear what Tyrod had to say about why he thinks he got put down.
I personally didn't take my thoughts there. I'm not sure what other guys talked about amongst themselves or whether things were taken towards the coach or not. Like I said, I had to be prepared just in case I was to go into a game and still be in tune mentally with the preparation throughout the whole week. So I never took my thoughts there. This team is very capable of making the playoffs, and we have to go out there each and every week and play the way that we know how to play.
Sidebar, I shouldn't use the words put down there. I meant to say sat down. Don't at me. Translation on what Tyrod Taylor said. I knew I was the best person for the job, but go ahead. That was one long I told you so. The Buffalo Bills do not deserve Tyrod Taylor at this point. There are not enough starting quarterbacks to go around in the league, period, to be able to consider yourself in a position for success. Never mind the backups. So when you're botching things with the commodities you have to go to the obviously less experienced people, you know what it means? It means you don't know how to win in the National Football League. I'm sorry. That's all I can really take away from it. Coming up, the coach Herm Edwards is going to join us. I'm Clinton Yates. It's the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.